All right, and welcome, my friends, to the next episode here, Red Delta Project Podcast Live Feed Q&A. Today is the Blue Suit edition. I just got out of a Taekwondo tournament here in Denver where we dress in our, what they call our blue suit and everything for when we're refereeing and helping out in the tournament and stuff. And I was like, oh, hell, I'm not going to change. I'm just going to be all nice and formal for you fine folks over in the RDP community because well, sometimes I should put a little more effort in my appearance, maybe sometimes. But nonetheless, today's episode is muscle building shortcuts. What are my favorite muscle building shortcuts? And more importantly, why you need them. Because I know that a lot of their animosity in our fitness culture is about, a fear of shortcuts. We've heard this rhetoric from people so often of like, there are no shortcuts in fitness. Hard work is the only shortcut. And, there's no shortcuts to anywhere worth going and stuff like that. And that's a sentiment I held for years myself. In fact, if you gave me two options on how to get results, I would have always taken whatever cost me the most, whatever had the most blood, sweat, and tears to it. Anytime someone gave me oftentimes sound advice of, hey, if you eat this way or train that way, it might be better for you, I would immediately back evil Satan if it in any way meant less work and effort on my part. And as I've always said, one of the reasons for this effort addiction is because I didn't know what I was doing. When we don't have a clear objective that we're trying to achieve in our habits, then hard work and effort itself becomes the objective. And so the goal is I'm just going to work as hard as possible. I'm just going to put in as much effort as I possibly can, not knowing that in many ways, hard work and effort can be a serious liability to your ability to get the results you want. Now, I'm in no way saying that hard work is not important. None of these sorts of things excuse the vital importance of hard effort that you put in on a case-by-case and consistent basis. Because sometimes when people are like, there are no shortcuts, what they often refer to are ideas out there, things like, do this and you can get in great shape without effort, without hard work. You can build muscle with this pill. You can do a great thing and you don't have to put in the hard work consistently. And of course, that's not true. You need to have hard work and effort to get anywhere in life, especially in fitness. But the reason why shortcuts are not only in existence, but absolutely 100% essential in most cases for you to get the results you want, is because while hard work is absolutely vital for your success, it very often isn't even close to enough on its own. And the reason is simple, is because hard work is nothing more than effort. It's the expenditure of your resources, your time, your energy, mental energy, physical energy, emotional energy. Everything that you want to do of progress, including building muscle, is going to take a good degree of hard work. And yes, absolutely, there are certainly times and cases where putting in hard work is 100% the answer to what you need. Back in the day, coming back to Taekwondo, I was like, oh, I want to advance faster. Why am I not testing for my next belt ranks quicker and stuff like that? And my instructor just sat me down. He's like, it's simple. You're just not putting in the effort. You're kind of going through the motions in class. You're not really pushing yourself very hard physically when you free spar. And you're only coming to class on average like 1.25 times per week. Like I'd show up regularly on Friday nights and maybe Tuesday afternoons if I kind of sort of felt like it. And so I started to make some serious progress over the next couple of years purely through more effort. I started going to class 2, 3, 4, 5 times a week. I started to just put more oomph and effort behind my techniques. So that was certainly a case where I made a lot of progress just by simply putting in more time, blood, sweat, and tears effort. And in many cases in fitness, that is absolutely true. You walk in through any sort of gym, and it's very obvious, especially when you're in coaching for several decades like I have, you're looking at folks and like, these folks, they're working hard, but they could be doing a lot more. I've had many clients where people would be like, do a set of push-ups, and they're like, oh, that was my absolute max effort. And just by my experience, because their experience was limited as a beginner, it's like, that wasn't even close to your max effort. You had at least 5 more repetitions in the tank that you could have done. And it's certainly understandable why you may feel like that, because you just haven't gone to that level yet. A lot of times we have a level that we can go to for effort and exertion that many people never experience, and it's because they just never needed to go there. When I was bike racing, that was the big lesson I got from bike racing, because bike racing, even though I was a martial artist and I enjoyed working out and I was hiking Mount Mansfield and going on trail runs and everything like that, bike racing showed me that, Matt, what you think is your high level of effort is barely even scratching the surface. You can push yourself to a much higher level, and you didn't even know you could do that until you actually went there. And so, yes, hard work is very much important, and you can probably do more hard work, and you probably can make more progress happen through that hard work. However, there's a limit to hard work. And as I stated earlier, the reason is because hard work is the expenditure of resources, nothing more. And you only have so much time. You only have so much effort and energy and motivation and willpower that you can exert in any type of habitual activity that you do. So sooner or later, you're going to run against the limits of how much you can or are willing to work. And once you hit that limit, you are not going to make any more progress through more work. It's just not possible. And chances are very, very good that limit you're going to run into is far below where you want to go. You want to lose 50 pounds? You're probably going to be able to work your way off 10, 15 pounds. Beyond that, it ain't going to happen with more work. You want to build 20 pounds of muscle? Great. You can probably build a good 5, 6, maybe even 10 pounds of muscle, just blood, sweat, and tears, leaving it all in the gym workouts. But you're not going to get beyond that, because you cannot scale hard work beyond a certain point. It is physiologically, mentally, emotionally, and socially impossible. And we need to recognize the limitations of hard work when it comes to practical application of accomplishing anything in life and fitness. I've been reading a lot of financial books lately. There's no financial education these days in school. So I'm like, I need to know how to handle money better and stuff. And one of the things that is just constantly coming up is the fact of, it's going to be very, very hard for most people to work their way to a good financial situation. And this was a lesson that I had learned years ago when I first started training, because I had a good friend named Phil, who was kind of an entrepreneurial individual. And he's like, you cannot possibly become not even rich, just financially well off personal training. He's like, it's physically impossible. I'm like, why? Why? He's like, well, how much do you make per hour training people? And I told him it was like $12 an hour or something at the time. And he's like, okay, $12 an hour. How many hours are there in a day? I'm like, well, 24, obviously. He's like, okay, so you do the math and you add it up, and it only added up to a relatively modest number. He's like, you can't work more than 24 hours a day, but you also have sleep. You also have food. Plus, he's like, what's the realistic thing that you're going to train people for 8 solid hours in a day? This is one of the hard things about being a personal trainer, is that you can be at the gym for 13 hours, but only train 5 clients during that 13 hours. So you only get paid for 5 hours. So he's like, you cannot do it. The math just isn't there. And he's like, that's why you need to get other streams of income coming along. And it's the same thing with fitness. It's like, you just can't work your way there, especially if your goals and ambitions are relatively high. You can't do it through hard work alone. The only way you can make up the gap between how much progress you can make through hard work alone and where you want to go is with shortcuts. It's the only way. And it's not the only way in fitness. It's the only way humans have made any real progress or achieved anything worthwhile throughout all of human history doing anything. We've never accomplished anything without shortcuts. The very fact that you're listening to this podcast right now is evidence of this. because of the technological things that we have advanced, because of the fact that we can harness electricity. Just even the very words that are coming out of my mouth were invented by human beings long time ago to make it a lot easier to be able to communicate without, playing charades and grunts and everything. It's like, wow, if we create the shortcut of language, we can communicate with far less work and effort. So we need these shortcuts. It's as simple as that. When people say there's, bad things about shortcuts, what they're usually talking about are detours. These ideas of like, oh, you can get great results without work. Yeah, that's not a shortcut. That is a detour. That is pulling you away from the very things that you need to do in order to achieve results. It is like, oh, you can lose weight and you don't need to worry about your diet. You can build muscle. You don't need to work out and stuff. No, that's simply not possible. So yeah, in that regard, there is. But this idea of there are no shortcuts can be very detrimental. That's why I followed it for so long, is because I was always trying to take the hard road. I was always trying to make things hard on myself. And I did it to a very detrimental level too. That's where I had a lot of disordered eating habits, where I had a lot of compulsive exercise habits and stuff. And even coaches and, people who knew me, like friends and family, would be like, why are you making this so hard on yourself? Why are you making it so hard for you to do well in school or well in, Taekwondo and well in the things that you want to do? And that's a very important lesson, because the majority of quote shortcuts that are out there are not about making things easier. It's about making things not needlessly difficult and hard. And that's a big thing that I find holds a lot of people back in our fitness culture. When people will say, I'm struggling to lose weight, I'm struggling to build muscle, I'm struggling to make the progress that I want. And then I look at their habits and what they're doing, and I'm like, you are working way too hard at this. First off, about 80% of what you're doing isn't helping you at all. So nothing's going to hold you back in life like useless work, wasted work, right? It's very prevalent in our fitness culture because, again, if we don't understand what is effective, then the hard work itself becomes the goal. And it's real easy to kick your own butt. You can always identify someone who's an amateur in physical training, or even physical training coaches. The amateur coaches are the ones who are just trying to kick their butt. They're like, I'm just trying to destroy myself in the gym. I'm just going to, drive my client into the ground. And it can be very rewarding. It gives us that feedback of like, oh, I'm so sore. I'm so exhausted. My muscles are completely spent. I'm like peeling myself off the floor after every workout. It gives us that feedback that says, oh my gosh, I really did something. When in reality, you probably did a lot less than you think. And this is also why it's so hard to sell people on shortcuts. I'm in the business of shortcuts. And believe me, it is not an easy sell. It is not easy to sell people on an easier path in fitness because we've grown so wary of it. Take, for example, my double tap training that I've been coming out with for my beautiful strength program. 2 sets per exercise, 2 work sets. You wouldn't believe it. Like, I get emails and messages and stuff, people saying like, I'm not even going to try it. There's no way it can work. I don't even want to give it a shot. I don't even want to try it. There's no way. This is the stupidest thing ever. 2 sets. This is what is wrong with you? Are you lazy? Are you incompetent? Do you not know what you're doing? Kind of thing. Because there's that whole thing. It's like, oh, are you lazy? No, you're efficient. You're efficient. You know what you're going after. And it's an ego thing. It is totally an ego thing. Speaking of someone whose ego is still, to a large degree, wrapped up in how much I can kick my own butt. But the fact of the matter is, no one gives a damn how hard you can work. The hardest working person in the company is not the one who's most rewarded. The most productive worker in the company is the one who's rewarded. Maybe. These days, most workers are just straight up exploited and saying, thank you very much, we'll cut your pay now. But hard work in and of itself is not an asset. We want to be able to make ourselves more productive. And so a lot of times that means taking off the brakes. When we seek hard work and effort for its own sake, that's like getting on a bicycle and purposely riding with the brake on. Like, oh man, it's so much better to ride your bike when you're squeezing the handlebar brakes. It's like so hard to ride up this hill. It's like, yeah, you're working hard, I guess. I mean, if you're on a Peloton or an exercise bike, that's the whole point, is you apply the brake for resistance. But if you actually wanted to be a good bike rider and you wanted to win a race, or you just even wanted to get to commute to work faster, the brakes are not going to help you. They're going to hurt you in so many ways. And I had that experience myself as a bike racer. I used to purposely ride big gears. When I was like, I just want to kick my butt when I'm on the bike. I want my legs screaming bloody murder. I want to have my heart feeling like it's coming out of my chest and sweat pouring down. So I would have these rules of like, you can't get out of the big ring on a road bike. Doesn't matter if you're going uphill. And so I'm grinding gears at 20 RPMs and stuff. But when I got into bike racing, I learned that approach made me really bad at bike racing. I was really, really slow. And my coaches and my friends would be like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm strong. I'm a badass. My legs can take it. And they're like, yeah, you're also getting passed by everybody and dropped like a sack of moldy tangerines. It's like, you're a terrible bike racer. It's like, but I'm working so hard. I'm like, no one cares. No one cares how hard you're working. In fact, most people, if they do care, would rather you not work as hard, because hard work not only costs you, it costs your friends and your family and those you are close to, because your time, energy, and effort is also influencing their relationship with you. So hard work is good, it's necessary, but it's not something to build an ego off of. I'm still trying to learn that myself. This is the pot calling the kettle black and everything, but I'm setting the stage here. But we'll get into some of my favorite shortcuts. But let's start off right there with the idea of like, it's not about finding ways to make things easier. A lot of times it's just getting rid of the crap that makes things harder. And so my double tap training has been a great experience with that. 2 sets per exercise, because I basically started that idea with, how much can I put into a workout and still make a meaningful stimulus in my training? And for me, that from the evidence and the anecdotally, it's like, that's about 2 sets, maybe 3, maybe at the most 3. Because it's like, can you do more work? Sure, you can always do more work. But if your ego and your emotional satisfaction with your training depends on how hard you're working, you're always just going to work yourself into the ground. But probably the biggest shortcut that I can give you is, it's not about how hard you're working. It's not about your routine. It's not about the exercise, not about the resistance and everything. It's about how well you can achieve the fundamental objective of your training that you're after. That's what makes your training effective. It's not about your routine. It's not about what exercises you do. It's about whether your routine or your exercises and all the other variables can help you achieve that fundamental objective. And when it comes to building muscle in particular, again, in line with beautiful strength, that objective is to challenge your muscular work capacity, to place your muscles under resistance, and to place it under resistance enough for enough time or repetitions to get to that point where your muscles are going, oh, I'm having trouble doing this. I'm really getting tired. Okay, I'm done. Getting to that point. As far as the evidence-based research and anecdotal evidence has consistently shown, that is the main primary stimulus for building muscle, is getting your muscles to that point. And so the way you find and create shortcuts is finding easier ways to achieve that objective. And we'll dive into that in just a second, but let me get to some of these comments here. Gromit, feeling so sick, something to listen to. Sorry you're not feeling so good there, Gromit. I do hope you feel better real soon. Big Guy saying, can I get results with just one exercise if I do it? I'm assuming that's consistently. The answer is, of course, absolutely. There's this idea in fitness, and this is one of the things that often holds people back, that exercise is only effective once you cross a certain threshold of volume or effort or work. This one was very prevalent back in the day with cardio, especially for me. It's like, oh, you only start burning fat after like 20, 30 minutes, after your like mitochondria ramp up and things like that, after a warm up. Or you're only going to build muscle if you do this much volume and so on, right? And Yeah, there's something to be said for these things, but it's usually not that important. But what it does is it sets up this mindset, which isn't true, that you put in a certain amount of work and effort, a certain number of exercises, certain number of sets and reps and miles on the treadmill and time and all this sort of thing. And then you cross this imaginary line and right then and there, now it's effective. Bing, now it works. Now it counts, right? And anything below that, it's a complete waste of time. Doesn't do anything at all. That's not how exercise works. That's not how training works. There was a study that was published over at Stronger by Science not too long ago. It was like 6 months ago. And they took some subjects and they had them do a bicep curl. We're not even talking one set, one rep, right? It was like 3 times a week, if I remember correctly. One bicep curl with a dumbbell. That was all they did. And they built muscle and strength. Now, are they going to turn into Mr. Universe with that? Of course not, right? But it worked. There's no such thing as an ineffective amount of exercise. The second you do anything at all, you create a stimulus. Now, of course, there is a very strong correlation between how much work you do and how strong the stimulus can be. You put in more, you're generally creating a stronger stimulus. Generally, not always. In the case of building muscle, one of the interesting things that's been shown in the research as of the past, I'd say year, maybe 18 months, are a lot of studies that have been looking at 2 groups of people. Like one person would do a straight set and the other person would do some sort of training style that would take them to a much higher degree of fatigue. Drop sets, pause rest training, complementary sets, things like that, where it's like you just drive the muscle further and further and further into the ground. And time after time, it's shown that both groups build roughly the same amount. That all of that extra hard work and effort doesn't appear to really produce that much more benefit. So the reason why, again, 2 sets comes about is when it comes especially for pulling the trigger for creating a stimulus for muscle, it seems like you need to put in up to a certain amount of work. And then beyond that, it doesn't really do much. So we've kind of got it backwards. Whereas before it was like all of this work up to a point is useless. And then everything after that is more and more beneficial. It's kind of the opposite of more and more work is beneficial up to a point, and then anything beyond that is probably not going to do you a whole lot of good. Kind of have it a little backwards. Maybe that's what the research is showing. There's always more to learn. There's always more gaps to fill in the theory. But nonetheless, big guy, yes, absolutely. And that's not a bad training strategy either. If life is getting kind of hectic for you and your time and your energy and your motivation, all that sort of thing is really starting to really hit you and stuff, that could be a fun training strategy. It was a big thing with kettlebells for a while. Just do kettlebell swings for like a month and see what happens. Do 1 set a day, 20 reps. Do that with pull-ups. Do that with handstands or whatever. See what happens. You're going to like the results. I guarantee you that. Louis Cisneros with the badass avatar saying, you always inspire me to pull back and keep it to 2 to 3 full body circuits a week. Very good. At 38, the balance of recovery is way more important now. Yes, my friend. Thank you for your wealth of content you put out. My pleasure, Louis. Because we are all here to learn. We are all here to grow and help each other out. I'm learning this stuff just as much as you folks are. I'm always curious about what works and how things work and stuff. And it's a pleasure to be along the journey with you, my friend. MJ Hammer 60, before we jump into some of my favorite shortcuts for building muscle, saying you have to be on the journey to take a shortcut. Most people don't even start. Oh, good point, my friend. Yes, absolutely. Because you can't take a shortcut if you're standing still. Absolutely. Because that is what often ends up holding so many people back. And I think a lot of it comes down to what we were talking about earlier, where people think, I need to know the best, the maximum, the optimal way, or the best way, or or whatever way to get this thing done. I've worked with folks in the past where they're like, what do I do to achieve this result? I'm like, well, get started with X, Y, and Z. And I see them 2 weeks later and I'm like, so how's it going? And like, oh, I haven't started yet. It's like, what's holding you back? Why not? It's like, well, I want to make sure it's going to work for me. No. Nothing works for you if you don't take action. There is no maximal anything. And furthermore, here's another shortcut for you. All right. We've got the internet. We've got podcasts and videos like this one. We've got no shortage of information out there. But a shortcut I'm going to give you right now, maybe write this down, get it tattooed on your forehead, maybe. The best information on how to do something that's best for you is going to come from your experience. It's not going to come from me. It sure as hell ain't going to come from the internet. That's good for ideas. It's good for facts and information. When did Return of the Jedi come out, right? 1983 or something, right? That's what the internet's good for. But if you're like, what's the best method for me to work out to create a stimulus for hypertrophy? You sure as hell are not going to find that on the internet or your social media. You might find a good program. It's like, well, here's an idea, double tap training, like in my previous videos. My beautiful strength, that's good place to get started. But what do you really need to know? You're not going to figure that out sitting on your couch. You're not going to be able to figure it out being dogmatic to your programs either. You have to take action, and you have to be able to learn from your experience. That's what's important. And the fastest way you're going to get that is by taking action. You can have, I always say this, you can have years of learning on the internet. Go to college, get a PhD, get 2 PhDs, marry an exercise physiologist, right? And all of that isn't going to teach you nearly as much of what you need to know as getting down on the floor and doing a single set of push-ups. That single set of push-ups is going to teach you a hell of a lot more in that one set compared to everything else. You're going to get a lot of information, but it's applicable information that you need. And that's going to come from taking action. And no, you don't need to take action for the next 6 years or all this other things. It's simply a matter of do something, learn from it. Pay attention to what your body's telling you. What happens if I eat a whole large pizza? Go for it. You know, with my eat to satisfy methods and stuff, I'm always telling people I eat to satisfy and things. And folks are like, oh, if I satisfy myself, then I'm going to eat an entire large pizza. Do it. Do it and see what happens. I'm not saying it as a dare or anything like that. I'm saying literally do it and see what happens. When's the last time you had a large pizza? You know, well, I did my diet, you know, I got to eat clean. It's like, seriously, do it and see what happens. And people will eat like, you know, a quarter of the pizza even. And they'll be like, oh, boy, I'm so full and oh, I'm so thirsty and I'm not feeling that good. I'm like, well, there's your lesson, isn't it? Not as a, well, that's what you get. It's more of a good. Now you know. And now, because eat to satisfy is all about feeling good. It's all about eating in a way that helps us feel good physically, emotionally, mentally, right? Well, do you feel good eating all that pizza? No, not really. Okay, so how much pizza did you eat when you did feel good? Well, probably about 2 slices. There you go. There you go. Why go on the internet and say, how much pizza can I eat? How often should I eat? What's a good macronutrient ratio? Go and just eat 2 slices of pizza. And you're like, I feel pretty darn good. You know, there's a pizza place here in Colorado. They make all their stuff from like local ingredients. It's got to be all like real good, fresh stuff. Because every time I go there, I'm like, I feel so good. Every time I eat there, I have so much energy. I want to go work out and everything. And pizza's the perfect size and everything. I'm like, gosh, I feel amazing. I don't know what's in the pizza. I don't care what it is. It makes me feel good. Therefore, that's one of my go-to places for when I want to eat pizza. All right. More questions, more questions. Oh, here's one for in the middle of things. Grind mode. Matt, how do I cut and lose fat? Very good. Well, it's the same as everything, my friend. We lose body fat through a calorie deficit. If there's anything else, the slew of weight loss drugs has proven to us pretty much equivocally once and for all, it's that you lose weight because you eat less and you're moving more. You increase your rate of caloric expenditure, you decrease your rate of caloric intake. That's how it works. That's how it's always works. That's the only way it works. Pure and simple. All of the other stuff like, oh, we cycle the carbs and macronutrient ratios and all this, that's just ways to do that. It's just different vehicles. They're fine. There's nothing wrong with them. But again, if you're not looking at a fundamental objective, you're blind in whatever you're doing. And so that's why understanding Want to lose weight, you gotta have fewer calories going in relative to calories going out. It's pure and simple as that. Now, the thing I would say though is you want to know the ultimate shortcut though, is to not need to do the work in the first place. One of the best ways to really decrease the amount of work you do is to not require it in the first place. And this is why I'm not a fan of most people following bulk and cut cycles, because bulking 9 times out of 10 means you're eating just too much. That's wasted calories in food when you're getting fatter. You have no purpose for it. It's not helping you build muscle. It's usually not making you stronger. I know in powerlifting that's a little different because there's strength to weight ratios and all that kind of thing. But for the most part, putting on good amounts of body fat for the sake of building muscle is kind of like saying, I want to learn how to play chess, so I'm going to go smash my head against the wall. It's totally useless, pointless, not needed whatsoever. You got to eat good. Yeah. You got to eat plenty of food. And sometimes it can be a good idea to be like, I'm going to eat until I start getting fatter. So I know kind of, again, from experience, okay, I notice I'm starting to get fatter. Yeah, that's probably the upper end of my calorie limit intake that I can handle before I start getting fat. Once you start putting on fat, eating more calories or even quite that amount of calories is not helping you at all. And so you're basically eating food that you got to burn off that's not helping you. So the best way to do it is to learn, again, from experience, what that level of caloric intake is roughly. So you're not inhibiting your body, your musculature, but you're not putting on a whole lot of body fat. All right, you're not getting a lot of fat because if you don't put it on, you don't have to lose it. It's the old adage of like the easiest way to quit smoking is to not start smoking in the first place. The easiest way to cut is to not need to cut in the first place. Now, if we're talking cut like really lean, again, that begs the question of why and is it worth it? Because getting real lean, single digits, unless you got a genetic advantage to that, is real hard. So this is another thing about hard work that we have to recognize, is that we all have the potential to get extremely lean. We all have the potential to bring our level of performance real high, but we can't maintain that. This is what I call like an Everest level of ability. It's like you can get there, but you can't stay there. The amount of work it takes is just too much. The amount of stress on the body at the top of Everest is too much. We cannot sustain that. So that's why optimization, maximization, and stuff like that is not possible. It's not practical, and don't think you're going to be able to maintain it. That's why people who do achieve super lean cuts or super high levels of performance, like power lifters at the top end of their strength curves and stuff, they're there for a day. And if you're really good at it, you time it to the hour. To the hour. That's when you're competing, ideally, right? And so that's good for that purpose. But most people, it's like, I don't have a particular time or purpose or reason to get there. I usually say, don't even bother with it. Don't bother with it. It's just not worth the work. And that's a big part of shortcuts, is recognizing what work is worth it to you versus not. Vincent saying, hey Matt, if you want to be lean and slim with a muscular build, would high rep training be more effective than low rep heavy training? Nope, it probably doesn't matter at all what your repetition ranges are. That's kind of the old holdover back in the 80s and 90s, like, oh, you do this rep range for this result and this rep range for this result. It matters when it comes to absolute strength or endurance, and kind of somewhere roughly generally in the middle is an easier ability to challenge your muscular work capacity to stimulate hypertrophy. But by and large, it has almost no bearing whatsoever on aesthetics, especially leanness. Your ability to be lean is calories in, calories out. It's not about exercise. It's not how you're lifting in the gym. It's not about your heart rate zones. It's just you have more going out than going in. And so that's why, again, like a lot of times the best shortcut is not being distracted with these things. Because when you have that objective in mind, that is your target, that is your compass needle that says every decision you ever make or a question you come across in fitness, will it help you go in this direction? Right? That's what a fundamental objective does. Will it help you challenge your muscular work capacity to build muscle? Will it help you achieve a calorie deficit or increase your caloric expenditure or decrease your caloric intake for the sake of a caloric deficit for getting leaner, right? That's what objectives do, is they give you that compass needle. From then on, you can base every decision and every question you will ever come across on that compass needle. And the answer is usually very obvious. It either says, yep, that will definitely help me, or it will probably, in most cases, be, nah, it probably won't really help me that much, in which case it's not worth looking at. And that's the case here. You know, using different rep ranges and stuff won't do really hardly anything to your caloric expenditure or your caloric intake. So therefore it will pretty much do nothing. So lift what you like, my friend. That's a great thing. Like a lot of times when I'm talking about like, oh, you know, it doesn't really do anything, people are like, oh man, it kind of sucks. That's disappointing. I'm like, no, that's a great thing, because now you have the freedom to go do whatever the hell you want. Lift what you like lifting heavy, lift heavy. You like lifting, you know, some higher volume stuff like endurance, like, oh man, I love the pump from 20 set reps. 20 set squats are great for my head, or, you know, stress relief. Like, great, rock on. Just don't think it's going to make any meaningful difference in your ability to see your abs, but great. Now you're off the hook. You don't have to worry about affecting something that it probably won't. All right. Benz, it looks like he's running for office. I always said I would make a great politician under the platform, a pull-up bar in every house. You know, a kitchen in every pot and a pull-up bar in every house. All right, let's see what other questions. So the shortcuts, like I said, most shortcuts you're gonna find for yourself in life, because when it comes down to what's going to make it easier to achieve that objective, that's probably going to come from your own creativity and imagination. Now, I can come up with all kinds of ideas myself. Start a home gym, do calisthenics, stock plenty of good, healthy food in your refrigerator, make a grocery list when you go out and stuff. These are things that we kind of already know, right? If you want to eat better, don't have you know, Costco size boxes of Oreo cookies and Snickers bars in your cupboard, you know, but have a fruit bowl on the kitchen counter. You know, a lot of times, so when we are, again, working too hard against ourselves, we're working against our environment. And it's like, oh, I can force myself to do it. Why work so hard at it? Just make your environment. I don't have a TV here, right? I don't have a TV in my apartment, and that's on purpose. If I want to watch something, I just pop up my iPad. That's the biggest screen I've got. And if I want to watch, you know, my Buffalo Bills play or football, I go down to the bar, or a friend of mine has a big screen TV. I go over to their house and, you know, watch football there. But I don't have a TV here. So my, you know, inclination to sit down and drink beer and watch TV is like non-existent. I don't have beer here. I don't have alcohol here. I don't have much in the way of junk food. I got some trail mix with some chocolate in it. That's my junk food. I don't have a whole lot of stuff in my environment. Set up your environment for success. Don't be, you know, surprised at how much the path of least resistance really matters. Yeah, back when kettlebells were big and I was using kettlebells a lot, and people would go buy a kettlebell and they're like, they'd be like, okay, how many swings did you get? Did you practice your cleans and your snatches? I'm like, nah, no. And I'm like, where's your kettlebell? Oh, it's in the basement. You know, well, how often do you go in the basement? Well, not really ever. It's dark, it's clammy, it's musty. I'm like, well, then why is your kettlebell in there? Why in the world would you use a kettlebell down there? It's just a kettlebell. Bring it upstairs. And then they're like, well, how often do you use it now? Well, you know, I got a few swings in and stuff, but not as much as I'd like. Where is it? In my living room. Okay, cool. Where is it in the living room? It's underneath my couch. Get it out from underneath the couch. Put it, you know, kind of a little in the middle of the room. And then the next week they'd be like, oh man, I'm doing swings every day. I'm like, yes, yes. It's not a willpower thing. It's not a discipline thing. It's like literally set up your environment for success. Set up everything. Literally go to extremes with this. When I had a weight machine back in the day, it had plates and stuff, the night before I would set my weights up on the barbell. So I didn't have to set it up in order to exercise in the morning. I literally like stretch out a little bit, do some push-ups, boom, underneath the bar I go, squat time. Because I didn't have to set it up. Make it easy, my friends. Make it easy to achieve those objectives. It's so much better. Ryan K saying, Matt, am I crazy in doing one kettlebell day, one isomex day, one calisthenics day? How can I program such a mix? Love what you do. No, I think that's fine. That's great. Always remember that the biggest thing to consider when it comes to your programming is just, can you get the work in? You know, it's like, okay, I got kettlebells, I got isomax, and I got calisthenics. Well, what if I did isomax first, and then kettlebells, and then calisthenics? Wait, no. How about half isomax, half kettlebell? You're rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic again. You know, you can program and change things up a million different ways. Again, does it help you achieve the fundamental objective that is truly responsible for your success? Most of the time, no. It's like I'm just getting the work in on a regular basis, and the work is consistent with achieving that objective. Well, that's as good as it can be. At that point, just do whatever the heck you want. So yeah, I think it's great, Ryan. I like that combination too. Kettlebells, calisthenics, isomex. That's good. That's very good for power and everything. Jill saying, hey, my mom wants to strength train, but she has wrist and hand issues that don't allow her to put much weight on her hands, like push-ups on the floor, hold a bar with much weight. Any ideas? So it depends on a number of things here, JC. A lot of it is, first off, do you have injuries in the past? I've worked with people who've like had pins and screws and stuff in their wrists, and they're like, I just can't physically do it. My hardware doesn't support it. I'm like, ooh, okay. There's not a whole lot we're going to work around that sort of thing. So you can always play around with different handles. A lot of times if you use beefier handles, where we got, we've got, the handles here for Vector Athletics. I know these are for bands and stuff, but I mean, these suckers are big. Bigger diameter handles are usually easier on the hands and the wrist, just because it spreads out the pressure on the hand and the palm. There's less of a pressure point. So look for things that have big things there. Another thing you can try and do is, it might be due to more of the fingers than anything else. So have her work with her hand against something where her fingers can curl down, like push-ups on yoga blocks or something. So instead of a handle, like have her fingers curl off, so she's still pushing into her hand. The other thing too is, a lot of times wrist stress is actually from your back. So a lot of times we hunch our shoulders up and forward, that causes the elbows to go out, and we get these really weird oblong angles in our wrists. I mean, I'm just doing this right now, and it's like, boy, that is awkward. That is not comfortable at all. And then you put any amount of pressure into that, and it hurts. We martial artists, we've known this for a long time. The wrists, the joints are extremely strong and resilient in proper alignment, but as soon as they get out of alignment, it takes nothing to cause strain and stress. My old original instructor used to always love to demonstrate that on me, where he'd get my wrist in a wrist lock or something. He'd like, look, my pinky. And he'd go tap, and I'd be like, okay, all right, tap out. Is because that's how alignment works. So there may be a misalignment issue there if it's not a structural issue. And that's usually where I go to first. But try the fatter handles and fingers off the big on the yoga blocks and stuff. Gromit coming on again. Sorry you're not feeling good. What are your thoughts on training well under the weather? Training this morning was not a good session, but I kind of needed the pump anyways. Yeah. So it's always a bit of a judgment call. Again, the knowledge you need to know about this is going to come from your experience. So you got experience there, my friend. You did your workout. Not a good session. Well, of course not. You don't have much to work with. You're sick, right? You don't have the energy and the focus. So you're naturally going to have less. That's okay. That's why adaptable training is so important. Don't be dogmatic about your training. Like, I have to do 1,000 push-ups. No, you don't. Why in the world? It doesn't make any sense to try and do so many push-ups when you don't have the energy for it. Yeah, you can force it, but why? Again, it's needless work. It doesn't do you much good. And in this case, it probably is doing you a bit of harm. So that's why my adaptive training programs and everything are so important, is because you use what you've got. Some days you're going to have less. And that's another big shortcut. Don't be dogmatic about your training or your diet or exercise, because sometimes you're just going to have less time, less energy, less motivation and stuff. So that's like getting in your car and insisting you drive at 80 miles an hour down the highway in rush hour traffic. You just don't have what you need to make it work. So you're going to basically cause problems. But at the same time, being dogmatic holds you back, because you could get in your car and be like, okay, 80 miles an hour down the highway and it's clean and great weather and everything. And your friends are like, dude, we're on the Autobahn, right? You can go faster. Like, nope, 80 miles an hour is the right way to drive. Like, okay, but you're getting passed by all these other, there's a Prius passing you at 100 miles an hour. So being dogmatic holds you back and it makes you go too much. So being adaptive means use what you've got. So when you're really sick and you very much don't have anything, then yeah, you're not going to do much of anything. I had long COVID years ago. I was sick for 6 straight months. For a lot of those workouts, my workout was light stretching, and that was it. Or a single set of push-ups against the back of a kitchen counter or something. That was all my workout was, because that's all I could handle for months on end. But some days I'm great. Now I'm feeling much better. I'm going to do a hell of a lot more. When we get stuck into thinking what is the one single right way to work out, you're going to hold yourself back, or you're going to overexert yourself most of the time. How often is 40 miles an hour the right speed to drive in a car? Sometimes, but it's wrong most of the time, because most of the time you should be going faster or slower. So when you're sick, if you're really sick, just some really light, just hang off the bar. Get some band work in, just feel good. Are you going to get much of a pump? Probably not. Getting a good solid pump requires an output of energy and focus you're probably not going to have when you're really sick. So let's know that about yourself. It's probably just not going to happen right there. It's okay. Give yourself a little bit of leeway, but it can feel good to be moving around a little bit. But if you're feeling like, I'm kind of under the weather, but I feel better if I move around a little bit, great. I tell my clients all the time, if they come in and they're like, I'm kind of fighting something, I'm like, all right, here's the lesson. We're going to be working hard. We're going to ramp you up gradual and slow. We're going to make you feel good. And the second you feel like you're starting to come back down, we're done. I was like, I don't care if you're here for an hour-long session and you feel that way after 30 minutes, you're done. I don't care if you're in the middle of a circuit. I don't care if you've got, legs still to work or whatever. You are done. We might give you something lighter or something like that. But that's usually the way I approach working out. Well, anytime. Use what you've got, and as soon as you start feeling yourself circle the drain, you're done. You end it there. That's called discipline, my friends. Micaiah, it's good to see you. And how many exercises should I do in a workout of push-pull legs, shoulders, core, and split? Well, one for each of the things, although you could probably just mix a bunch of things with that, because push can be shoulders in and of itself. So if you're getting like an incline dumbbell bench press or push-ups and stuff, you're getting shoulders pretty good if you like. But one per thing, and then it's typically push and pull. You can get 2 basic compound movements. Legs, you can have squat and lunge variations and stuff. So 1 to 2, I would say, is a pretty good way to go about it. And he follows up saying, I tend to overestimate my time limits and I'm having to eliminate exercise in my workout. That's fine. So when you're consistently running into those time limitations, circuits, which is a good shortcut many times, can be a good way to go about it. And again, this is another thing I do with folks who are sick, is I'll put them through push-pull squat and I'll have to do 1 exercise for 1 set, right? Because it's like, well, we can do 5x5 on pull-ups, but then after 5x5 and they're like, oh man, I'm really starting to be tired and exhausted here. I'm like, okay, you're done. And all you got were pull-ups. But if I'm like, okay, let's do some rows, let's get some archer push-ups, and we'll get a round of lunges. Okay, when you get that, all right, how you feeling after all that? Do a self-assessment. If they're like, oh, I'm starting to feel tired. Okay, great. You got everything. You got their whole body with just that. So good. You can leave knowing that you covered most of your bases. But if they're like, I'm feeling kind of a little better, I'm like, okay, another round, bartender. And you do the push-ups, do the rows, do the lunges. Okay. And then we self-assess again. How are you feeling? Okay. All right, let's get a couple lighter exercises here. Okay. So with the circuit style like that, you cover more ground sooner rather than straight sets for one or the other. Me, Emmy is saying, hey, Matt, when doing one leg hover lunges, should your planted foot be straight or angled outwards, as my physio says? I've never heard the angled outwards things. Straight is for sure. In either case, knee needs to go over the toes. Bottom line, knee needs to go over the toes. I don't know why they're saying go outwards, though. I've never come across that, and just my trainer mind right now is going like, that is a terrible idea to have because if I'm front facing you, and I'm putting my weight on one leg, my knee and my foot are on my center line. So if my foot is outwards slightly, externally rotated, my knee's going out that way too. In which case, that's going to be really weird and awkward. Or my knee goes forward, in which case the knee is tracking to the inside of the foot, which is going to be hard on the knee. Not sure why they're doing that. Seriously, ask them about that. Usually when I come across something like that, where someone's like, oh, my nutritionist said I should drink a 6-pack of beer every day, the alarm bells go off. But at the same time, I'm like, why? Like, there's got to be a good reason for that. And for the life of me, I can't think of one. I can only think of reasons not to do that. So ask them about it. I'd be curious what they say, in all honesty. Because, I know the idea of toes outwards is a general recommendation for bilateral training, for squats and things like that. Absolutely. But remember, whenever we adopt a rule dogmatically and we're like, this is the way we do it for everything, sooner or later, that rule is going to pull you out of alignment. Like I was saying about your joints earlier. Alignment is very good. It makes things a lot easier and it makes things very safe and very strong. But that same rule can cause misalignment in the wrong situation. That's why dogma is so detrimental in life and fitness. One of the best ways to recognize dogma is when you have a rule, and it's a fun exercise to be like, okay, so when is this rule not applicable? When is this rule not a good idea? Now, if they're dogmatic, they'll say, no, this is always the way it should be done. This is always the right way, 100% of the time. And that's how you know you got a dogmatic approach on your hands. A good coach will say, well, there's lots of situations where it wouldn't be a good idea. So let's say as a calisthenics guy, I'm like, push-ups are awesome. Push-ups are wonderful. When are push-ups a bad exercise? Oh, there's tons of times. My friend who's got the bad wrists, we could try different handles. We could try different techniques, different things, and that. And she could be like, I'm just not good. I'm like, well, maybe push-ups just aren't in the works for you right now. They could just simply come to me and be like, I hate push-ups. I did 1 billion of them in the Army, and I had bad experiences with them doing this push-up program, and the last thing I ever want to do is push-ups. Not a problem. We won't do push-ups then. That reason alone is a good reason not to do push-ups. But I want to build bigger and stronger chest muscles. Yeah, there's 1 million other reasons, or 1 million other ways we can do that. Why in the world would we pick on push-ups? Why would we force you to? There's no good reason for that. So again, it comes down to, it's not a shortcut about making things easier. It's about not forcing yourself to do needless, stupid, hard work. It's like, whoa, but I love dips, or I love these chest flies. I'm like, there we go. There's your shortcut, right? That's a much easier way to work the chest for you, because shortcuts are individual. Excuse me. Question saying, don't feel the muscles working or activated. Example, chest means you're not gaining muscle or less gains. And what is good indicator you stimulate the muscle to near failure? So it's not quite that concrete. If you don't feel the muscle working, it probably is still working to some degree, and it probably is getting more stimulus than you think. Okay, so there are plenty of people out there who will say, oh, it doesn't matter if you don't feel it, kind of thing. I disagree wholeheartedly with them, but if you don't feel it working, that it is still doing something. Okay, so you're not totally wasting your time there, but you're all right. If you feel the muscle working harder, it is definitely a lot more effective. It is a hell of a lot better if you can feel the muscle working to that degree. So it doesn't mean you're not gaining. It doesn't mean there's no stimulus and whatnot, but you will definitely make more with good activation. And that's why one of the best shortcuts is, of course, improving your muscular activation abilities, your skills. Isometrics is really good for that. Setting the tension before you do your exercise is good for that too. So you just get into position, tense the muscle, and then you apply the resistance. That's a good way to do it. Practicing flexing the muscles is good. I highly recommend for those really stubborn muscle groups, like your pectorals, if they're really just not turning on, get coaching, get some eyes on it, because a lot of times it's an alignment thing. Really hard to engage the chest when your shoulders are hunched up at the bottom of a push-up. As I often say, this protracted posture, shoulders are up and forward. This is like the off position. It just turns everything right off. And so if you're down and back and squeezing in, chest is going to light up like a 4th of July. So when you are practicing and engaging your muscle activation, which is always something we can improve upon, then just simple things like that can be a huge shortcut, because muscle activation is one of those things. You improve it, everything gets a lot better. You make all of your exercise more effective by improving your activation without any more hard work. If you're doing 3 sets of 10 on push-ups, your 3 sets of 10 are now more effective. It doesn't take any more hard work if your activation is improved. So it's one of those things that you want to improve and always seek to improve. You can always improve activation. It's not an all or nothing thing. I guess that's one of the reasons why I was trying to say earlier, like, just because you don't feel it much doesn't mean it's not working. You do have activation, just not very much. So you are getting something out of it, but you can always get more. And it feels amazing when you do it to a much higher standard. Henson saying, do you do barbell squats or deadlifts for leg strength, strong physical erectors? No, I don't do any barbell work. I haven't done it in close to 20 years now. Barbell and I just never got along. If I ever do stuff with external load, it's dumbbells or sandbags. I've always had much easier time. And again, that's my experience. That's what it's taught me. If I do like squats and stuff with a barbell, it's like it feels really hard, but it doesn't feel like it's doing what it needs to. It's a lot of effort, but not a lot of benefit. But if I do it with these other tools, then it's, whoa, holy smokes, that is so much more effective. And so that's what I do. It doesn't matter what works for me. What matters works for you. But don't get stuck into expert opinions. It's a big shortcut there. Follow your experience, not what someone on YouTube says. You can have someone like 1 million studies. Running is the best way to burn fat. Running is the best thing for cardio. Running will make you live to be 200. Running will make your dick bigger. All this sort of thing does not matter at all. Because if you go for a run and you're like, I hate this, it hurts my knees, I don't feel very good, I can't do it consistently, but I really get a lot of great things out of hiking. I love to hike. You hike. End of discussion. That's where you go with, because you're looking for what's going to be the best way for you to get something. Not, what is the best exercise for such and so? Who cares? Does not matter at all. You can do that for a good idea. It's like, oh, this person says this is a great exercise for this benefit. Give it a shot. See what your experience is. But always, always, always go after your experience, after a good amount of experience. Don't just do it once in a workout and be like, oh, wow. Give it a good solid 6 months. See what happens. Get some experience, get some coaching on it if you can too. Because a lot of times when we don't have good experience with something, it's because we're doing something wrong about it. When people come to me like, I hate doing push-ups, and then I watch their push-up form, and I'm like, yeah, I'd hate doing push-ups if I did them like that too. So let's do it this way. And they're like, oh, wow, that feels great. Now I love doing push-ups, kind of thing. So go off of a lot of informed experience, I guess I would say. All right, I got to start wrapping stuff up here, folks, but last couple of things. Micaiah coming on. One of my splits is chest and tries. One day I do quadrupedal movement to warm up, dips, bench, tricep, push down, skull crushers. Then I might sprinkle in core. What is that? Overkill. So always look at the movements there, Micaiah. So like tricep extension like movements. Like I've got tricep extensions on a cable machine. I've got skull crushers on dumbbells. I've got triceps on gymnastics rings. It's the same basic movement. Different exercises, yes, but it's kind of like going to an all-you-can-eat buffet and you're like, I got French fries, I've got curly Q fries, I've got tater tots, I've got sweet potato fries, and I've got, hash browns. You're like, It's all fried potatoes. It's all the same food. Is it, like going to Taco Bell. It's all the same thing in different organ. It's like, what's better for you, tacos or burritos? It's the same thing. It's just in different packaging kind of thing. So I would say pick one tricep extension, one main, let's see, what do we have? Chest tries one day, movement, warm up. Good. Dips, bench. Make the bench a little more incline. Okay, so when you do different exercises, the best way to get a broader stimulus from it, this is what beautiful strength is based off of, you want those exercises to be as different from one another as possible. Because the more closely they are to similarity, the more it's just redundant. Okay, so it's like people who have like 15 different push-up variations in a workout. Yeah, you're coming across the same exercise 15 different ways. You're not really doing anything all that different. You're just watering down the intensity. So I would say hit the dips, incline bench press, probably about 20 degrees or so ish. A little more if you want more on the shoulder. Yeah, go with a more incline. Go with a bit more incline. 45 degrees or so would probably be a good way to go about it. Try one of the extensions and one core exercise. Okay. One core, you get one. Because a lot of times people overdo the core exercises so much because they just do weak core exercises. Do 1,000 crunches, then I hold a plank for 5 minutes. Then I do all these side crunches and stuff. I'm like, yeah, this is all easy stuff. It's not going to do much. Pick one thing. Break out the ab wheel. Ab wheel hits everything. Do the ab wheel, get like 8 solid, hard, muscle shearing, burning, intense repetitions. Do it twice, you're done. And walk away feeling good and happy. Highest weight you ever did on a weighted squat, dumbbell, sandbag, lift. I'm not sure. I mean, I was squatting regularly in the mid 200s of so forth, but if I'm really honest with you, my technique probably sucked. That's the other thing is I was always terrible at barbell work. I could get dumbbells really strong. I was bench pressing 100-pound dumbbells, but most days 135 on a barbell was challenging. And people are like, how is that? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know why, it just doesn't make any sense. Like, give me the 100-pound dumbbells and I'll warm up with that. But 135 on a barbell for a bench press always felt like it was just really tough and not in a good way either. It's like all in my joints. It wasn't in my muscles and things like that. So that's why you want to work with your body, not against it. Yeah, Magnus saying, I hated doing push-ups before I discovered your channel. Now I love it. Thank you very much. I'm happy to turn that tide a little bit there for you, Magnus. One more of my man, Joseph Bello. I feel better engagement in my exercise when I do push-ups, feeling my triceps chest, than I do tricep extensions to finish my tricep. I still hold in the bottom of push-up. Fantastic. Yeah. And that was my thing too. Like I could do bench press, and for some reason, I just did this the other day. I did an isometric bench press. I'm like, maybe it's an iso thing. Every time I'm on my back, it's all in my joints, not hardly anything in my shoulders or my chest. I'm like, what am I like? Not packing my chest, my shoulders down. I'm not squeezing my back, engaging my lats. My angles are off. Like something's got to be off, and I'm always trying to figure out nothing. But I do dips or push-ups, bang, right into the chest, huge pump, feeling the muscle burn. I'm like, well, there you go. there's your experience for you. I feel that chest blowing up like crazy on really good, hard, like ring push-ups, like weighted ring push-ups. Oh, don't even get me started. But if I got on something where I'm laying on my back, not even close. I'm still figuring out why. I've consulted coaches. I've been spending years trying to figure but at this point, it honestly doesn't really matter. It's like, well, ring push-ups it is then. Rock on. All right, my friends, I'm going to join some friends for some happy St. Patty's Day shenanigans. And thank you very much for coming on in, folks. But keep an eye out for those shortcuts. What is the easiest way for you to achieve the fundamental objectives that I talk about in Be Fit, Live Free and my books, Micro Workouts and stuff? You can find all of my stuff down below in the link down below in the description, as well as the equipment resources that I recommend for setting up a home gym, especially for calisthenics. But what's the easiest way for you to do that? And if you don't know, experiment, and your experience is going to tell you. And that's going to give you a lot of good things there Coaching is also a very good shortcut, of course, because I always tell people I can tell you how to improve your workouts faster in 5 minutes than you may be able to figure out on your own in 5 months. So get ideally in-person coaching, but online stuff is certainly always an option. And the other thing too, oh, I meant to mention this too, videotape yourself. No one ever does this, but I swear you learn so much. Just have someone record you. You got a video camera in your pocket. We all do now. Videotape yourself doing an exercise, then watch the playback. You learn so much from that so fast, and no one ever does it, but that is the ultimate shortcut that I can give you for self-coaching, which is going to be extremely beneficial. I mean, think about it this way. As I tell clients, you can be stronger and better off come this time next week. You can be stronger. You can have more muscle. You can be in better shape this time next week, or you can be the same way you are now or worse off this time next year. The choice is yours. Take the shortcuts or just keep bashing your head against the wall. I'll talk to you next time, my friends. Till then, be fit and live free.